I'll read it.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
To call a meeting to order. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Albany Historic Resources Commission. In attendance this evening, we have Commissioner McEnany, Commissioner Pinckney, Commissioner Garrity, Commissioner Commissioner Hacker, and Commissioner Tobin, and myself, John Myers, the chair. We have a quorum, and we are represented this evening by counsel, Jason and Aaron Glennon from the planning office, and Christopher Tobin. Christopher Lohman. Close, very close.
I'm the Tobin.
I got that. Christopher Lohman, the historic preservation planner for the city of Albany. If there are any questions that arise, we just ask that the question be, and we certainly invite questions from the audience, but anything that it needs to pertain to the subject at hand, and it also we request that it be limited to 3 minutes in duration. And our timekeeper here will make sure that it is properly observed. With that, I believe we can start the meeting. So the first item on the agenda, and the only item on the agenda, it's a public meeting or public hearing agenda item. 52 James Street in the downtown Albany Historic District. The certificate of appropriateness is being sought for the modification to the front facade of 52 James and signage. Representing the applicant is Daniel Sanders. So welcome to the meeting. And
good evening.
Good evening.
And Florida Santana Jonas representing Neo Vista. There's a little bit of background to the building, which I'll just fill you in on. The Neo Vista group recently purchased the property and has some very exciting plans for the renovation, formerly of an office, and architect's office and vision was in there, I believe, for a number of years. And they did a major renovation, of course, on the interior, but for their last iteration of the facade is what you see today. We are modifying that to accommodate the new use of the building. Maybe you can speak a little bit just to the proposed first floor use of the building, that may help.
So the first floor, which will be, I will start with the left-hand side, okay? It's going to be what we call a fresh market.
That would be the top of the drawing, where the circle is, the end.
Correct. So, it's going to be, food to go, ready to go. You'll be able to pick up produce, pretty much a nice kind of grocery store, for lack of a better word. I think it's needed down there. And it's going to be exciting to see that traffic happening there. The challenge that we have is that on the other side is a main entrance, and upstairs is going to be a daycare. And so in order to provide what we felt the appropriate safety for the kids and not having people having access to the upper floors, we had to kind of change where the entrance is and have it separated. And for egress purposes, we do have a emergency only exit on the first floor from the grocery store, but not an entrance from there. So that we can kind of keep them separate and provide the optimum security and safety for the upper floors. But it's going to be, we're excited about it. We're investing a lot of money into the area, into making this something that everybody can be proud of, and providing what we feel it's needed down there. I don't see a grocery store. I don't see a kind of a small kind of supermarket in the area. So that's pretty much it.
Just expand on that. In terms of the grocery store and the experience of the group that's designing it. They've done a number of them. We're looking at another one in the area as well. And the challenge from a design standpoint is to maintain a separation, that former entrance on the bottom of the page right there, and to keep a symmetry of the former, before this building was renovated, a firehouse. So those were overhead doors. So the last challenge that the architects and owners of the building had was to, if we can go to the original photo, or the photo today, is to replicate almost a garage door, multi-light building, multi-light overhead door look. I don't want to get into the sort of critique of that, but it seems like it's fairly broken up. And that's just my opinion, but the door is on the right side for the main entrance. And we wanted to create something that would bring it back to more of a symmetrical feel within the design of the two archways. So that was what we were looking at. Now, when it came to a symmetrical look, which you'll see in a minute, I just wanted to explain that that included two separate, distinct entrances, one into the lobby for the daycare and also future office, and one into the entranceway into the market. So keeping the feel of years gone by of probably what were similar doors, yet we need to make something functional and operable, and also as a door, as the use of the building safe and a new secure entrances. We went back to the multi-light design of an overhead door with two similar entrance doors in the middle of both of them. So this would be rebuilt. This is not anything we're trying to bring and retrofit those doors that are there now, but there is some appeal to that idea of what is there now in terms of a multi-light, and also to keep it kind of transparent as much as possible for both the entranceway into the building for the lobby and for the market. Sorry?
Sorry.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I've had this question. You have any historic photographs?
No, I haven't seen anything, but I just was told that there were two overhead doors. I've seen a lot of overhead door firehouses in Albany, which we wanted to kind of keep what was there from a transparent and a multi-light overhead door look to what we're creating. But there's also a concern, of course, of tempered glass and transparent glass versus panel. So we brought it up about 2 feet off the ground to protect that. So those would be panels. We will need to have, similar to what's there now, we will follow up with a section, or if there's something that you wanted. This was our initial meeting, and we appreciate setting time for this meeting to, I know the owner does, that we were able to present tonight. So what it really entails is that the comparison, we feel, of what is there now, which has a very sort of right-handed shift for the main entrance, versus what we're doing is two distinct entrances, but you really can't necessarily tell that they're two different entrances, but they are. And that's pretty much it.
I have a question to follow up to Commissioner Pinckney's. Have you checked, what are the resources you've checked so far relative to any historic photographs?
I haven't found anything, so
Where you look?
I haven't really looked too much.
Okay, and if you talk to, because you may want to talk to Tony Opalka, because I'll assume that if anybody recently has any
I think that
deep
what
digging.
I was assuming, which may not be the best thing to do, is that this was done with the assumption of the one on the left being more, kind of accurate to the overhead doors that we've seen. But in terms of the breakdown of glass versus panel, we can play around with that. The main thing we wanted to really do is have two sliding door pairs centered on both of these openings, on both of these bays.
I guess I don't, personally, I'd rather wait to see what we find for historic photographs before we have that conversation. And then another question is can you go back to Chris, I guess, and the floor plan? So there's a daycare first floor, we saw the plan, and then a daycare on
It's
the
a
second.
lobby. The first floor is gonna be the lobby for
And
the
then
whole building.
For the whole, that's what
Yes,
really where
yes,
I'm
ma'am.
going. So
Yes.
daycare on the second floor
And third,
and third.
We lost them.
And what happens on the upper floors?
upper floors are gonna be offices.
Corporate office is gonna be there.
That's where you're gonna be.
So what we did is we opened up the floor plan from the existing plan, which was an angled lobby space, and that went into the architect's office, and basically opened that up to a lobby so there could be a reception area, which we can show eventually when we finalize the design of the daycare, where the drop-off will be. So that will be a control point on the first floor on the right side for the daycare. In that lobby, there's enough room for a reception desk. I think, thought we had a plan of that, but that's all right. And that would be near the elevator, which is the big X right there. And then from a control standpoint, as we said, that would be the drop-off area for the daycare. And obviously also for the office personnel to go into the elevator and those existing staircases.
Marilyn, we did do a pretty extensive search for
You did.
historic records or photos, at least within the planning department. I think, so Tricentennial Park is directly in front of the building, and so there were a number of historic structures there previously that were demolished in the mid-80s. I was only able to find a photo from 1985 that was documenting, this building is in the background, as they were documenting the demolition at Tricentennial Park, but I could not find anything earlier than that. Not to say that there's not something at the Institute or the Albany room at the public library.
And it isn't about the same alignment of time that we have on the blue form too. That's,
Yeah, I guess I would just assume from a whole other perspective, meaning the firehouses in the city, that his research,
Yeah, Tony will help, I might have something.
yeah, if anyone would have it,
I believe it went through historic review. Did it get SHPO tax credits, this project? I thought we were-
The change,
Yes,
well, what's currently there matches what was documented at least in 1985 and on the blue form, which I believe is from 1976.
So it's that panel.
Correct. I'll see if I can find a photo if it wasn't included in the packet.
I don't remember any reference to a fire truck there. And I find it shocking that you would put two wagons on the most narrow street in the city of Albany on James Street. So I wonder how long ago it was that it was ever a firehouse. I wonder if it was even ever in the 20th century. It's a very narrow street. You have thin horses.
left.
We good? So it's, you can see it,
Yep,
is
yep.
the structure right here.
Can you keep zooming?
We can.
Jason, oh, Jason.
We
His
could go- we
zooming
could go
skills are.
real-
Pixelated this.
There you go. That kind of where you were looking?
Yeah.
So it is panels. Look like glass. Is it glass? Glass panels?
I assume that's what it looks like. The stuff on the left is like
that's just a
fencing
sign up
or,
there on that.
right?
Yeah, the left
Right.
is.
Isn't that a sign for the business or whatever?
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a sign on the left, and then on the right, you see that kind of beginning of what is there now at that right thing to enter you.
And this is 1985?
1980s, 85, 86.
Yeah, and it matches the 76 from the blue form.
Well, let's go back to the proposed elevation.
opening is exactly what's there now.
Say again?
I'm saying the arched-in area.
Oh, the
all
full
way
masonry
down
opening.
Is exactly the
Yes.
same opening that was already there.
Yep.
I think it works. It's, I don't know, the panels, the glass panels just seems too many little panels. Maybe, have you thought about creating more glass and less buttons or framework?
We could, sure. I mean, the main thing is we're trying to emphasize that the symmetry and the
Mhm.
balance between the two openings would be important to have on the front of this building. However we do as a surround, and how we may, again, this isn't the final, this is a discussion tonight, that's why I appreciate your input. If we were to modify the squares into more rectangular, surrounds maybe on the outside parts of it, or I was just kind of trying to work with what the more, to me, balanced looking door looked like versus the one on the right. I'll leave it at that. So that's what we were working with. And pretty much the dimension is very similar to what's there now in terms of those square units.
It's really too bad there's no historic photo, because I'm reflecting on Commissioner McEnany's statement, like, this wasn't like a roll top garage door. Would this have been a carriage doors that swing open, and you wouldn't have had that much glass? Like, it's like, it'd be nice if we could find historic photos of like a carriage barn with the doors that open. They would either open out or slide, or something that was different than what's there.
I wonder if we'd ask Tony, among all the others, is there roughly what would have been a lookalike?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Mhm.
And then we could, and that might give you more flexibility too.
Sure. I guess the thing is, sometimes, at what iteration are we looking to recall? If that makes sense. Are we looking to recall the one from 1985 or the one from 1925? And I'm just bringing that up as a matter of discussion, because that's always our challenge.
Yeah.
And that's why I like presenting to this group, because we have a good discussion. But as far as, and then, when you try to recall something that was too far back, and then you're trying to modernize the use and et cetera, that's the challenge. But essentially, we are, open to maintaining a transparent appeal to a commercial use, or if that makes sense. We are maintaining an open feel to this market. We don't want to, and then maybe these muttons and mullions are too busy, and we go to something that's more of a, I don't know, I kind of like not being a typical storefront, because it does recall that it was a door of some sort, as opposed, but I also would not necessarily favor a solid entrance door either, because it was like that in 1925 or something. That makes sense.
Also, if you went back too far and you've got a solid door, which was actually two doors that
Right.
opened this way, you're gonna lose that center entrance that you like in this plan.
Correct. So, again,
And you're really off if you go left or right in each, you're probably better off not to go too far back in this one.
It feels like it's a hypothetical discussion until we find out.
if there's something available, we're more than happy to look at it, yes.
Tony, a pocket person who's on my phone, I can call him and find out how long ago this was actually a firehouse. That's.
Jack not currently at the meeting, but.
Yeah, we can do it after for sure.
Okay.
Jack's excited.
It's kind of interesting. I hear the challenge, and again, from our end, what was there, so that it's not full conjecture, et cetera. It's a complicated discussion.
Sure.
I mean, resolvable, but a little bit of a complicated discussion. But a couple thoughts. One is that there might have been always an independent passage door to get to the upper floors,
To get to the upper floors, okay.
right?
I
mean, that's
understand that,
We
yeah,
should have been totally off-center.
but that's right.
Yeah, so that's one question.
Because what we're,
I
just to
also
clarify,
think-
what we're showing is a centered door to get to the upper floors.
Understood.
Through a nicer, less broken up lobby, which is
Understood.
what's there now. If you
I
walk
can't
through.
believe you had a firehouse that was 4 stories tall.
That's,
If you look at the full building in that 1985, this whole thing was done at the same time that the Myers building, which was built in 1906.
Mhm.
You can see where it matches, if those remember it, that it had that particular look. And 4 stories tall, the firehouse, I don't.
Yeah, that
I don't-
well, it's 2-story height, the lower level, this first floor is a double height space that I believe they put the mezzanine on top of that second floor. So that's why I don't know, did somebody tell us that it was a firehouse or something? That somebody told when I was walking through, I heard. But either way, if it wasn't, then, again, we're working with what we have, as much as we can right now, so. But it did have additional ceiling height.
So, 2 parts to that question. One is, was there historically a separate passenger door, right? We're looking for information about that. And the second is, your intent is to create symmetry, and yet from a functional standpoint, you're really looking for something different to some degree, because one on the market area wants to be open and inviting and have a lot of people coming back and forth. And on the lobby side for the daycare and the offices, it's kind of closed almost by function for, as you said, some controls relative to the daycare, et cetera. So it's kind of interesting that.
Yeah,
It's just interesting, that's all.
yeah, I could see it the other way as well for the lobby, but we could play it a little bit differently in the fenestration or the scale of the windows between the two and see how that looks, but still maintain a center kind of.
I wouldn't do anything
entrance.
until we find out
Yeah.
what might be available. And then the other question is, if they're symmetrical on both sides, you'll be, I guess, reliant on signage to direct folks to the 2 different functions.
Correct.
Right, or the 3 different functions. What kind of signage are you imagining?
That's where we are right now. So we did, Chris was able to get this in on time, so thank you for your help.
Yes.
But yeah, the signage is shown here. What's the company again who did the sign? Same.
it's a vital signs.
Vital Signs, sorry. Vital Signs presented this. So I am not going to necessarily speak to the signage because I can't represent Vital Signs. But if there's anything to talk about in terms of the ideas behind it, to get the number of the address on the office side, and then Neo Vista's name for the market is on that opposite side. That's all. And then there's a sign at the top of the building too.
If I can go back a little bit to where we were, you see how in this current exhibit that the doorway to the right looks much more compatible with the building. And the difference between the two is that one has the top row with open glazing. And the one on the left shortens it. And the one on the right seems to match with all of the 4 windows above because of additional glass that's open and brings sunlight in. The one on the left looks like it belongs to a different building because it's gotten almost a horizontal sense of it because it's only got, I think, 3 or 4 squares instead of 5 squares. So you get some of that vertical height, which whoever put this together probably in the 1920s or before liked the idea of a vertical concept once you got into the openings, that there was a verticality to it. And then if you get at the bottom and you take the bottom one, you start making it shorter and not as tall. Then you start putting in a horizontal element that doesn't match the other four stories above it. The more glass that goes with it, the more compatible it is with the buildings above. The less glass, particularly if it's on the top and bottom shortened, it looks like it belongs in a different building.
That door is very narrow. That single door is very narrow. I'm just letting you know when walking in and out of that door, unfortunately. I wish it was wider. But that was one thing that was a little bit of a concern, that we wanted a double door.
Yeah.
And especially for the market. But I understand what you're saying, and I'm looking at it and kind of thinking, like, what would it look like if the flanking ends of those openings were the new openings, as opposed to having the openings in the center of both of those. So that could be something we could look at too, which would dramatically modify the intent of the building, the entrances. So instead of being both in the middle, they're both on the end like the one, but that single door is a little tight.
It's narrow.
Yeah. So we could look at that, and I appreciate what you're saying also about the additional horizontal band of glass, looking at the building as a whole, that it's more in keeping with the ratio or percentage of glass within those openings.
So if you kept the entrances, you had one on either end, but wider than that current one, and then keeping that transom above keeps the glass and the idea of the verticality, so you maintain almost like two fixed, 5
Maybe it's 5 or
pane wide,
4.
or maybe 4 pane
Right,
wide.
that's what it said, yeah, I think
That's
if
sort
we,
of fixed,
Yeah,
and
no, I
then
get
you've
that.
got transom, sliding
'Cause it's 4
door,
above
but you
you.
maintain that.
instead of 6 above.
Mhm.
Or something to think about, maybe, whether it's half or, we're not gonna touch what's above us, but, yeah, it's also wider appearance down below, even though it's the same. It just seems wider at the base, but it's not. Could look at something like that. Again, the starting point is that we were interested in keeping a balance of the two openings. But looking at the history of, if we find anything more about that, but we definitely need 2 openings. We need 2 sets of doors functionally.
Looks like the 2 new entrances are less squat. They're short. If you look at the elevation, they look shorter
Yeah,
than the upper windows. If you look at the photograph, it almost looks like the entrances are almost the same height as the upper windows.
The photograph versus the drawing.
That's a photograph.
Yeah,
Gives it a perspective.
It's also the angle you're shooting.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a
Down and
photograph.
upwards.
It's at an angle.
It just looks like those first floor entrances are a lot taller. It appears to be a lot taller.
We may
on the
need to
drawing.
verify, this was done by our draftsman based on a photograph, honestly. We didn't have any drawings. So, so we'll double check it, but that's pretty close.
Yeah, that does look close. It was the angle.
Yeah, but as far as the function of the doors, again, we could look at, you did want sliding because of, right? Or do you want to make them swing doors into the market?
I want them to be consistent.
Yeah.
That's, because right now it looks long to me. And me, I mean, I'm not a historical person. It just looks long. But, we're not married to one or the other, just something that's cohesive, that's consistent, that it doesn't change it a lot. So we're not trying to make too many changes. We're just trying to make it kind of consistent across the board, that it looks attractive, it looks appealing.
I really don't mind the sliding doors.
So,
I prefer it, but I'm not
Some
married to it, I
touch.
just, it needs to be consistent. And right now, when I look at this all,
Mhm.
you know, as is.
But I think whether it's sliding or not, I think what I'm feeling is that it should be a column of door, and right now you've got like the horizontal bands above the sliding doors and then the sliding doors, whereas when you look at the current picture, the door is a column within the opening. And so
So we could make those 6 panels above the door, potentially a single transom.
something like that, although I like the idea of shifting it off to the side, because then you get this nice single plane of window instead of having it broken up into these 2 narrow columns of windows. You shift the doors off to the
Right.
either side, then you've got this nice.
Well, the brushed aluminum just kills it.
Well, and that's the other thing, is if
I think
if I
that's what you're
pretend it's a
focusing
different
on.
material than
Yeah,
brushed aluminum,
Yeah,
it would fit in so much better.
right.
But I think that's, to me, that's the thing. I've been trying to figure out what looks off to me, and I think Commissioner McEnany hit it on the head. It's that idea of the verticality of the column of the door opening.
Actually, would you go back to the
Yeah,
drawing, with the signage that we just saw in that drawing? Aside from the information we're gonna get from any historic documentation that makes itself available to us, I think one of the interesting things here is we're focusing on the 2 masonry openings and our impression from the existing 20 lights or 25 lights per opening. And as I think it was as Jack said, you step back and they're really incongruous with the rest of the building. So should we not find the basis of an acceptable solution to everyone based on the historic documentation, it's an interesting situation to kind of step back and think of those openings and the treatment of those openings, not just as an isolated storefront, but as part of the overall building. And I think that's what that's what you're nudging at as well. Okay.
I'm wondering if we haven't been misled by the romance of it being a firehouse.
Mhm.
And if we look at it for what it was, which was a building that was probably built in the teens or the 20s, I would think, or the 30s at the most, because we didn't build anything after the mid-30s. If we looked at what we saw in the top floor stories, if we put that idea of a firehouse and swinging doors and took it right out of our mind, and we just kept the panels that separate the 4 windows in every single area and continued them down, you'd have a row of windows on each side, floor to ceiling, and then you'd have a cross piece, and across the cross piece, you'd have 2 doors. And the 2 doors would come together, and it would follow the same pattern as the rest of the building has been designed from square one. The only thing that would be awkward if you just repeated what you had now. So if I may, if this was the first floor and that was the door, that's what it would look like. Windows in the side, and you take the bar to wherever you needed it, which is usually 7 feet roughly to cross it. These 2 panels would be out. It might be slightly different because the height isn't going to be exactly the same. Knock out the middle of it, and that's what the whole building was designed like, every bit of it. If you took any one of these and
Well,
knocked
go
out
up to the 5th floor, because there's your arch.
Yeah.
Yeah, the arch goes back here and there, and that, I'm not even sure you need to chop off the, I don't know if we're respecting the arch by cutting it off short. Maybe the window should go right up and touch the top of the arch.
Yeah, like the 5th floor.
Right, and so if you get the idea of the firehouse out of your mind, And I question whether in modern times that was ever true on one of the more notorious side streets in terms of visibility. My guess is you might be better off to repeat what you've already been given, which is original, from the building or reconstruction of the building. I think you may be throwing yourself off by trying to do something with the firehouse that may or may not have ever been there.
So I guess I'd recommend that a little more research be done on city records, so that we can find out what the chronology, what we know of the history of the building, the history of the first floor use, and then restart this conversation with that information.
Sure.
Yeah, those
What-
upper floor windows sure look industrial to me.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
doesn't,
What's the other work that's gonna be done on the exterior?
It's the sign,
Windows or
the signage that's gonna
It's
be
the
up at the top of
signage.
the cornice.
just the signage?
Yeah, the building's in good
Building's in
condition.
good condition, we're just gonna clean it and just put the sign, and that's it, we don't wanna make any other adjustments.
What type of cleaner you gonna use? You gonna
Yeah.
use a cleaner to remove those stains?
Where on the stucco, on the, I guess,
Whatever that
Call it.
masonry is. What is it? Stuff like that.
There's a company that specializes in cleaning these buildings and.
Oh, we'll be interested in all of that.
And at some point.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to complicate this at all. It's just, there's some areas that just need to be cleaned up and are stained, and that's it, but we're not in a rush to do that. We're trying to get the door resolved, because we can't start construction until we get.
Is the signage part of today's discussion, or is that a whole separate?
The signage would be part of today's discussion. Primarily, it's because of the sign up at the
That's-
fifth floor regular cornice. The
Yeah.
triangular cornice, yeah, it's above what the code allows, or what like the HRO allows, the traditional below second story signage, no higher in most cases, especially in the downtown.
but there was a rendering with the sign in the middle. But
So what we're seeing on the right side of
Same
the
thing.
slide,
Oh, there.
we see the top of the building.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go.
I'm sorry.
That's all they gave us, right? Thank you.
I
tried to
can't
restrict it.
I recall other, I'll have to drive around and look, but we spent a lot of time talking about large upper level
Renaissance.
signage.
Hotel.
Yeah, the hotel.
And
I think Ostros building, wasn't it, on Sheridan? I seem to recall that was one of those signs that went above.
Cardona's
Rick.
law firm in the old,
Right.
Brown Derby building.
Right,
Right.
yep, McGuire, right.
Yeah.
and what's the material that's proposed for the signage, that upper level signage? Is it lit? Yeah, it's lit.
It's aluminum channel letter.
Be nice to see it in the entire elevation.
We can do that. Yep. Yeah, we'll get them to send us a JPEG.
Mhm.
I think they can. Yeah. I think we can come back with a center entrance that's located presently, and then we'll also look at flanking double doors and see how that works. When I say flanking, the outsides of both, see what, curious to see how, when we draw that up, what that looks like as well. And then taking the glazing all the way to the arch. As Jack mentioned, I think that's a nice sort of, brings it to light and
And I think the rhythm you get from the placement of the framing and the windows in the upper stories, may help inform what you do with these openings. Because by contrast, when you look at the whole elevation, they look quite busy.
Yeah.
With all of the elements trying to duplicate an old roll-up door. When in fact, you've got, as Commissioner McEnany pointed out, you've got evidence of how those openings were treated in the upper levels as originally constructed, as opposed to what the conjecture is for the lowest floor.
One advantage of a sliding door, which you mentioned as a preference, would be that if there were four parts within each opening, but you didn't feel that two of those parts, the two center or two wherever, were wide enough, if they automatically open, you will have a wider, not as wide as, say, 6 foot, but certainly acceptably wide.
Oh, no, they'll be six,
Yeah.
that's over 12 foot wide, the openings.
Yeah.
So divvy by 4,
Yeah.
we're 3 foot each. So we're fine with
You're
that.
fine with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it works fine.
And again, we're trying to make it symmetric and honor what the building looks like as best as possible. We're not gonna dig our heels in and say, well, it's gotta be this or we're not. That's not what we're here to do. We want the input and we wanna make sure that we honor the historical nature of the building, but make it actually work.
Is this a tax credit project?
No.
And is there any other state funding?
We have not, none of our projects. No, we're not affected. We're just trying to prove ourselves, do our projects, self-funded. And as we grow, at some point, we might pursue pilot agreements or what have you. Right now, the owner of the company's like, no, let's prove ourselves. We'll take the risk. Let's go before the boards. Let's listen to what they want. Let's produce it and then start there. And that's been our approach.
And the reason I was asking is if there was any public funding, there would be another set of reviews out of the state. And it's always nice for us to be aware of that so we can coordinate and not send an applicant on different paths. But
We're not
the
applying
answer
for
is no.
anything.
Okay.
Not applying for anything.
Yeah.
No. And it's not because there was a little set of rules, you just would not.
Okay.
It's a good job then.
Comments we want to call for the applicant? Do we want to ask if, open it to public comment?
I do have a quick comment. While you guys were chatting, I took a quick look at the 1908 and the 1934 Sanborn, and it wasn't a firehouse, it was a clothing factory, and there's a 1915 engraving with a facade pretty clear. I just emailed it to Dan and Aaron and Chris, which totally corroborates what you guys were talking about with doors on the sides.
Oh, nice.
Find on the internet. I sent it to Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a diary that's available.
Gather around.
Okay, there's our solution right here.
See? Yeah.
But it's actually broken in, the carrot's broken into 3.
Three.
Marilyn,
Oh, yeah.
we see some drawings.
There we go.
It's 3, not 4.
I'll get your email. Thank you too.
No, but it's 3 grades, it's not 2, and they're not equal.
So Sanborn is,
Yeah, I'm just saying. These 2
and so they're the
are,
same.
the center is a double wide.
So an Airbus
And then those are equal. Sign on it. Because of the band. Nice, like that. I mean, the only thing that Babcock sign looks like it's not exactly right.
It's got a transit.
Yeah.
Reflecting. It's not multi-site.
Yeah.
No, it looks really good, except Babcock is written twice.
Windows like the top.
They put them from there and on top.
Yeah.
They look, that's more
Well,
attractive.
that's because it's a great rendering.
I like that better.
Gotcha.
Doesn't it?
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
It's also very.
Last time we did that, we did that
Yeah.
It's nice. I like it.
The one that.
It's beautiful. Do you see it, Chris?
What?
Do you see it?
I will see it when I get my email.
Yeah, I like this.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, yeah, it's almost like we just
Yeah.
did that.
We're back in time.
86.
I got it.
You got it?
And-
Jason, oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, we can work with this. If you give us our approval and trust that we do it. You don't need to see us again. No, we'll work with
I
it.
think that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful.
It's interesting though, it is, from a signage standpoint,
The banner coming down.
Oh, yeah.
could do something like signage that comes off the building instead.
If you allow it.
How does the
So the
committee
signage-
feel about blade signs or something like that as opposed to buildings on the, is that?
Does you prefer?
What kind of signs do you say?
I think they're called blades when they go
Yeah.
perpendicular to
Yeah.
the building,
Projecting.
You know,
projecting.
you're opposite of park too. So you're gonna have people standing back, looking at it. It's not just you're on a side street, you wanna
Yeah.
find a way to.
So I don't know if this is a blade sign
Yeah.
location.
Yeah.
Because you don't have that much traffic or.
But you're gonna have people over at the old Union Station, you're gonna have people in the park, and they're gonna look at the product. And the way it was designed would show off the product by the corporate name under it.
Well, there's two banner signs, high and low, to kind of pay, see what,
Mhm.
if you want to work with that conceptually as well. They're nice, they're right across all the way. They have a nice font, interesting font for the building.
Thank you, Kara.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the commission appreciates your on-the-spot research, very timely.
It's great. Helps a lot. Thank you. Okay. Come back.
Oh, yeah, do we need to make a motion?
To defer the application.
I'll move to defer the application.
I second that.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thank
you very
you.
much.
A better solution, that works. That works. I like that door. I think you're gonna be good. We may not come back with a sign right away, but the door, we'll get back to you.
Yeah, that's still.
That's a beautiful door.
That's-
Can you send him, take a sign for that?
Of course.
Please. Thank you again. Have a good
Thank you.
evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other matters that come before the commission this evening?
Not in terms of project applications, no.
But in terms of a
But in-
departing commissioner,
Yes, they could leave last meeting, leaving us tomorrow, but, you know, we'd like to thank you for your 30+ years of service.
How many years?
30, isn't it 30?
30?
I think you're one of the,
You got me.
Wait a
You got
minute,
me.
how about Norm, is he the longest serving, or John, or Norman, or?
I am.
but one of the
I outlived
longest,
Norman,
yeah.
so.
What?
No one can beat Norman.
Well, I do want to thank all of you. This is my historic preservation community here. And I owe a lot to Michael Lynch, Marilyn, John, some of the older people, not old, but
Yeah,
yeah, no. And they taught me a lot about the historic preservation game. And it's still evolving. And I think I've reached a certain point in my life where I'm comfortable. And I feel good that I've offered my expertise, and I'll continue to support Historic Resources Commission, and I'll keep in touch. And I thank you all.
Where are you going? Florida's a big state.
Lehigh Acres, which is outside of Fort Myers. 30 minutes I can go. Huh?
There's nothing old in Florida.
Well, when I went down, I've gone down twice to visit my wife's mother, and it's really bleak and bland, and everything is one story, and it's and flat, yes, and canals, but it's I'll try it.
You'll find something to revel in.
Yeah, I'll go. The beaches, like I said, 30 minutes. I'll go and work on my tan. I'm looking forward to it.
You know, you look really good in that yellow, and it's a real Florida color.
Is it really?
I think so. I think you'll see pink and blue. It's not
The
flat.
only reason why I will, because it's cold outside.
Yeah, it is cold.
Well, I certainly have a long history with Lee.
Yes, yeah, John.
Historic pastures back in the
80s, early
83, so we issued the drawings for that. So, and
So through a few
initially, all
floors.
these field visits that we used to do, you were always the first one to say, I think it's worthy of a field trip. You need to go look at it. Always appreciated that, those moments in the field where things kind of become clear and crystallized. And you understand, what the applicant's going through, how that meshes with the requirements that we impose. Have to, adapt to the ordinance, and comply with it. But, no, I sincerely appreciate your friendship, your professionalism, and your expertise, and everything that you have offered the commission, and so freely and with your time and generous spirit. So you will be missed.
Thank you, Jonathan. I will miss you too. I'll miss everybody here, but like I told you, telephone, email, and Zoom if I have to, I'll be
And
there.
there's
You're
always the
not gonna
city's-
get rid of me that quick.
There's always the city's YouTube channel. You can watch the meetings.
Yeah, you can be a consultant.
Okay.
Are we done with our meeting?
We have to
If you would
adjourn.
like
We do
to
have to
adjourn
adjourn.
the
You have to
meeting,
adjourn.
we can adjourn the meeting, and I can stop live streaming.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
No,
I
Okay.
should've kept my mouth shut.
I'll move to adjourn.
Thank you.
You did.
So.
We did. Adjourn.
Here we go.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.